about the financing that comes with new construction, how that looks like? Because I've never really touched a new construction loan.
Sure. Well, it's not really that much different than doing a flip. The nice thing is that typically if you have your plans, you can send them out, you get a bid set. So you can actually get actual bids for almost everything for new construction versus if you've done a flip, it's like a lot harder to, your contractor's like, I don't really know exactly. We're just going to estimate and put some different, line items in there. And when you go to do your financing, typically with new construction, they'll want 50% down for the lot. Okay. Right. So it's like more for the lot because there's more risk for them. Mm-hmm. They look at it and they say, well, there's nothing actually here. It's just dirt. So we want to lower our exposure. So we're going to ask you for more money on the lot piece. And then they just, same thing as like any type of other loan. They just look at the ARV, or what the value of whatever you're going to build on the back end.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 21 of the Realized Gains podcast. I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee, and I'm a mortgage lender based in Portland, licensed in about 10 states, and I invest in single-family homes.
And I'm Stephen Tran. I'm an Oregon realtor, and I invest in multifamily and single-family homes. And today we have a really great guest. He's actually in my office. His name is Reed Kirk. He's a great realtor, but one of the big things that he's known for is, development.
Yeah, he's got a kind of cool process. He's really understands the building code in the local area, and so he's figured out how to do condoization.
Yeah.
As well as a few other things to kind of maximize what you can build in the area.
Yeah, no, that was an extremely great tip that I'm going to take. When I build multifamilies, like I can sell them off individually. I never even thought about that, and he made the process seem so easy. So, obviously everybody tune in and find out a little bit more and find out how you can maximize, with new construction.
Hey guys, welcome to the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran, and I'm here with my co-host, Jordan Lee.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan Lee, and I'm a mortgage lender based in Portland, Oregon, licensed to do business in 10 states, and I like to invest in single-family homes, and we're super excited to invite Reed on the show today, Reed Kirk, and he's got a long career in real estate. Maybe you want to give us a quick just introduction, Reed, of your background and how you got started in the business.
Sure. So I've been a real estate broker since 2004. So pretty long time through all the ups and downs. Right now I specialize in new construction and development and so on. But, I didn't start that way, right? Mm-hmm. In 2004, I was working part-time in retail.
That's what you came from retail?
Yeah.
So Nordstrom's, Macy's type retail, or what?
I was a manager at Abercrombie.
Okay, nice.
During the good old days.
You were an Abercrombie model. You had the ripped jeans and everything.
The whole documentary and stuff. Yeah, I was there during that time. Nice. In fact, it's where I met my wife. So maybe I committed some of the sins on the podcast. But at the time, I think I was making like $25,000 a year as an assistant manager, and a friend of a friend was a real estate broker, and he was like working part-time, making like $60,000 a year. And I was like, I don't care if I have to work in the middle of the night or whatever. I want to do that because this job sucks. So I ended up getting looking into it and getting my real estate license. And then I got hired to sell new construction. So I had
Wait, right away?
Yeah. So what ended up happening was, I got my license. The friend of a friend basically said, hey, if you get your license, you can come work with me, right? And I said, okay, great. So I got my license. I was working part-time in retail. And then, I did a couple deals here and there. But then his boss, where I guess the principal broker of the office where I held my license, came to me and said, hey, I know you work at this, low paying job. I'll pay you to sit on site at these condos and sell them for me. And I said, I get more money and more free time, and I don't have to work in the middle of the night. Okay, great. So I jumped over, and then it's, I always joke that it's a story of victory by attrition, because my immediate boss, we sold a couple condos. I worked there for a year, and there were probably about 40 luxury condos in downtown Vancouver. So if you ever think about hard sales, like luxury in downtown Vancouver, 15 years ago.
Oh, God.
So the builder had just built a condo complex.
Yeah, it was
and you were selling the condos inside of the building.
Yeah. It was a mixed use. So the first floor was all like retail.
Mhm.
Then there was commercial space, right? So like, office space and whatever. And then there were like three stories of high-end condominiums at the top, and they're all like custom built. So it was all just shells that we were selling. So I was selling basically like the dream of living in downtown Vancouver, and building it out however you wanted. And they were, at that time, it was like starting base price of like 600,000 up to 1.2 just for the shell, not including like all the. So we sold through the majority of those, and then my boss basically quit because she's like, there's only so many left. So then I became the manager of the site. And then once I had sold through all those, I got hired to sell affordable condos that were a condo conversion in downtown Portland.
Oh, nice.
So basically like this big apartment complex that's over by Portland State. They bought it, these developers had bought it, and then effectively evicted everybody and were renovating them and selling them as, super cheap condos.
Yeah.
So I went from luxury high end in Vancouver to super duper affordable in downtown Portland. And then I got hired as the assistant. Well, my boss there went crazy and basically constantly said, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired. And then the developer said, well, you're fired. And so then they promoted me, and then I ran the sales all the way through, and there was like 500 and something condos there.
Oh, that was a big conversion.
So, yeah.
What year was this when this happened? And you had
this was right after the crash. So
so this is like 2004 to 2000.
So I got into the affordable condos right at about 2007, so right at the peak of the market, and then it started to crash. And so we didn't see the effect in that market until the following year or so, because our price point at the time was like $200,000 for a condo. So people were still buying those.
So you went from selling them at like 200 to like 180 instead of like 500 to 300 or something.
And when the market got really slow, they ended up actually selling the final building. So I'd already pre-sold like over half of the condos in the final building. And then they're like, just kidding, we're going to sell it as an apartment complex. And so I got paid for all of these units that I never actually like closed.
They still honored the commission.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're like, here's your 100 G's, bye-bye, or whatever it was. So it worked out pretty well for me. And then we kept like a little bit, like there's like 12 units that were left over, like a couple of, the penthouses and whatever. And so I sold through all those. And that was kind of my base to start on my own in the business. But the market had just crashed. So so
that was a nice time to have some seed money, because at that point everyone's like losing all their stuff, right?
Right. Well, and even during that project, I was doing like if you remember like paper wholesaling, if you're familiar with that, where so like you would get a condo, or like somebody would have a condo, and you pretty much only do it with condos. Like it was something that was under construction that hadn't been built yet, right? And so you got it under contract for like 200, but now it's worth 225 or 250. So these people would just sell it to another person and do a simultaneous close, and that other person would close on it, but then the first person would get the delta of like 25 grand at closing. But you can't really do that anymore with, some of the new restrictions. It's, very tough. Maybe if you're like wholesaling, you could do it, but that's effectively an assignment fee, right? So I did that 2 or 3 times while I was there. So I was building up some cash as it was. But yeah, it gave me kind of a crash course in working with investors, because I was working with the developers of the entire project, and then also just investors that were coming in and buying property and buying units, and then me figuring out, okay, I can take over this contract of somebody who fell out because I'm on good terms with the developer, and our agreement was I could only resell units if there was none of that product available. Right, like this floor plan doesn't exist. Otherwise, I just
so you're not competing against.
Right.
Yeah, because he didn't want me to be like,
underselling yourself,
slanging units, out of there, and be like, you don't need to buy the.
That's 199.
I'm buy mine.
Yeah, I'm 198. They're 199.
Yeah.
Come on, yeah.
It's like no, you don't want to do that. But it did provide a good source of resale as well, because I knew all of the people who had bought units, so. I did a lot of resale at the same time as new construction. So it was pretty beneficial project over the long term for that. But after that was done, you kind of sell yourself out of a job when you
Yeah.
sit on site in one of these projects.
Right.
And so I ended up getting into buying properties at the auction. So,
Like you personally. Okay.
Yep. And right before that, I was a team leader of an office for about 10 seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, that wasn't for me. I didn't want to sit in an office all day and just, cold call other agents to try to come and, and come over. It's just,
Not your thing.
I'm a wolf pack of one, I guess, or whatever. And I like being out in the field, and I like walking through, construction zones and working with investors. And so traditional real estate was never really my jam. And I did pretty well, selling properties to, buyers and sellers and whatever. But there was a certain aspect of showing someone 10, 12, 14 houses and they never buy anything.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really frustrating, even though you're trying to close them and there's no commitment, but feeling like your income is out of your hands, right? Like it's whether, Tom and Jody decide to write an offer versus, when I work with investors, it's very analytical, right? So it's just, do these numbers work? Do they have enough capital to do the deal? Can we structure it in such a way that it works for them? And I know, generally speaking, what they want. I need to make this much. I want this type of product, whatever. And if you have enough of those people, it makes life a lot easier. And then those people don't like to work in the evenings and weekends as well, because it's typically their full-time job.
Yep.
And that was a big issue for us, or for me and my wife, my now wife. She had an 8 to 5. And when you're working real estate, you're working all the time. Whenever, if the bat phone rings, you go.
Yeah.
So,
we know that.
So, and I wanted to get away from that. So I thought that working with investors, that would work out well. So I ended up buying properties at the auction to kind of grow that investor pool. And the company out of Seattle that did all like the research and everything and provided cash, and I would go and drive around and look at properties. And then when all of that kind of went away because of the mortgage electronic registrations stuff, my investor pool just kind of stayed. And I started to say, hey, I'm making all these other people a lot of money. I should probably flip houses more too. Like I'd done a couple, but I hadn't really gotten into it seriously. I was just helping people find product. But once you've done it enough times, you kind of know, okay, this is a good deal. This isn't a good deal.
Yeah.
So on. And so, so from there, I started to look at properties, whether it's through wholesalers or, on the open market or distressed, like we're buying bank-owned properties and short sales and whatever, and helping those investors buy properties. But then I also started to do my own projects, like I was flipping a bunch of houses, and then I got into doing those pop tops, where you take a house down to like one wall and then you build an extra level, and then I said, hey, we're basically competing with new construction pricing. We might as well just build new construction. And so then I started building new construction, and
right.
and
so the flips got more and more intensive to the point where you're like, all right, I'm just going to buy dirt and build.
Yeah. Well, it becomes, if you do flips, like I don't know very many people who have just made their bones on only flipping for a very long time, because it's, if you're your own money and your own contractor, I did it.
Yeah, that's okay.
If you have your own cash and you're your own contractor and maybe your own agent, then there's all this extra margin. But if you're just an average person that's trying to flip houses, or like I'm not a general contractor, I've managed projects and so on, but I think that there's a value in paying somebody else to manage that. And there's also as a certain level of liability protection as well. Right. In case if you've ever been sued, you never live till you've been sued. But when you add in all those extra pieces, it becomes very tight, and so you end up like, if your profit margin was only 40 grand, but then you missed that you needed an oil tank and, it was on the market for too long and so on, that 40 grand can get down to 10 grand real quick. And then it becomes not really worth it. So, then you try to go for, try to swing for bigger chunks of profit, if that makes sense.
Get tilted, basically.
Yeah. You just like, I just need to do a bigger project because I need bigger revenues, because it's not worth my time if it's, if I'm only gonna make 10, 20 grand a piece, and if I can only do 4 a year, I might as well just stay being a traditional real estate broker or do a different job, because I could probably make more money doing that. so you end up, swinging for the fences and trying to do bigger projects, which can get you also in trouble if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure the price point's a lot higher to jump into new construction. And
yes and no. So if you're thinking about when you buy like a flip property, right?
Yeah.
Most people, let's just say the average person is probably using private financing, like hard money.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to bring in 10% for the hard money, and most of the time you can finance in your construction costs as well. So between 10 and 15%. So you might have a lower down payment when you purchase it, but then you're going to have your interest carry along the way, and then you get any overages. And ideally, that's for, let's just call it a 6-month time frame. A lot of people are like, I can flip in 3 months. It's like, yeah, well,
things happen.
Life happens. So, whatever. So I just assume 6 months. If you can get it done before then great. That's extra gravy. But I'd say 75% of the time it usually goes longer, or there's delays in construction because XYZ sub didn't show up or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, maybe your out of pocket is only $100 grand to do a project, or less than that, 75 grand, whatever, depending on the size of the project. But with new construction, you have to have a larger down payment for the lot. Let's just say it's a $150,000 lot. I'm just making up numbers here.
Sure.
You might have to bring in $75,000 right away, so more than you would have on the flip. But the majority of the rest of your expenses are going to get reimbursed, like all of your design and everything else. That's built into your budget. So you're going to be a little bit more, out of pocket overall for the entire project, but not nearly as much as you would think, because the rest of the build's going to be financed. So it's really just going to be the differential in the interest.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the new construction piece is that there's no surprises, for the most part. As long as you've done your due diligence and everything, you understand, like, okay, I can build here. There's no oil tank I need to worry about.
Right.
Like, I know where the sewer's going. I know this is going to be the foundation, and so on and so forth. So as long as you are working with a good price per square foot in your initial budget, then you can easily quantify whether it's going to be a good project, and then B, you can send that out for bid a little bit later on once you get into it. So it's a little easier to analyze, and you just kind of know, okay, these are my costs. This is the process. It's very do A, then do B, then do C, then do D. And at the end, you have a new construction house that someone doesn't put you through the ringer on during inspections.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, even with flipping, you get to the end and then they're like, hey, $10,000 in repairs because X, Y, and Z. And you're just like, well, there goes my profit.
Yeah, you can't look through the house and see the galvanized plumbing and all this stuff that could go wrong. And
well, and there's just, I think that there's also, from a buyer's perspective, a mentality difference, right? Like, if someone's flipped a house, they think, oh, this person's making a bunch of money, so I should ask them. And I think that agents are probably somewhat guilty of setting them up for that. Like, well, yeah, it was flipped and it was, they're going to probably make this much, so we should try to ask for, they're just trying to do right by their client, or trying to get their client the best deal. But let's ask for XYZ. Or the home inspector is going through and saying, oh, look, they just did the cosmetic stuff and they didn't touch this galvanized plumbing. They didn't touch this. And they can find your deepest, darkest secrets from your flip.
Yeah, nickel and dime you all the way down.
Yeah, oh yeah. Or they'll just irrationally pull out because they think, oh, this person, they didn't get a permit for this, so they probably didn't get a permit for that. And,
Right.
They get in their own heads and freak out. But with new construction, you don't get that as much, just because it's a new build. They don't really understand probably the profit margins involved in that. And you're offering a warranty typically on the property. I mean, maybe you get some type of homeowner's warranty with the flip, but with the new construction, you have a structural warranty you can pay for, like the 210, extended warranty. So we do that when we sell new construction. So,
So you graduated from flipping, and then you moved on to new construction. And did you start just building single families, or how did that transition work? And did you just use all the contractor relations that you had made, or what made you decide to I can do this? I can go for building. I can become a builder, developer.
Well, I think I just kind of got sick of the chaos of major remodels, and there's a lot of frustration there where, so to take a step back, the the allure of doing a major remodel versus new construction, at least in the Portland metro area, is that you were able to do, and you can't do this anymore, but there's something called the FIR program, which is the Field Issuance Remodeling Program through the city. And it's basically like an expedited permit program.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do major remodels through that program.
Okay.
So a lot of these flippers and contractors that flippers use will use the FIR program to get their permits a lot faster, right?
Right.
So we were able to take like a set of plans and effectively almost build new construction. You leave the foundation.
Right. Leave a little portion, but basically do new construction, but through a loophole.
Yeah, and it's effectively a new house aside from the foundation and so on. But what we were running into is, we do all the demo and then this contractor wouldn't show up and you've got like a half-built house and it's getting rained in.
Right.
And then this person wouldn't show up, or the floors are a little uneven because the foundation wasn't just right, or
it's like a 100-year-old house or something.
Yeah, you're like dealing with like the existing guts of this house, at least the bottom portion, and then you're trying to tie on to like the old sewer line and and so on. And so I just got a little tired of all these delays and just trying to jump through all these hoops just to save a little money on like not doing a foundation and your permit fee. Well, on a couple of my projects, I had gotten into doing property line adjustments because I was like, hey, this house, we're going to flip this house, but it also has a big lot. So let's do a property line adjustment where we basically like hack off a lot. And now I've got this extra lot and I've sold the house. Now what do I do with the lot? And there's a point where I was like, well, if we own the lot free and clear and it's part of the proceeds, we should just build on it, and so that's kind of where that came from, to an extent. And, I'd sold a couple of lots off and done pretty well there. But then you look around and you say, well, how hard is it really to do a build? And I'll tell you, I think it's very important to have good partners because, and that goes for the flips as well as new construction. And I'm still, even to this day, still dealing with kind of refining like, okay, this person didn't work as well as this other person. I had one contractor that I ultimately ended up having to fire because he was supposed to be building this new construction house and just like nothing was happening, right? It was like 6 months into my loan and all I had was like a concrete foundation and that was kind of it. And I was just like, I can't keep waiting for this guy. So I ended up getting referred to another builder and then it was like night and day, it's like, and he came in and it was like, people on site every day, you drive by and like, the framers are there and then the window guys are like standing there waiting for the framers to get done and, so on. And it was very like, it was just a world of difference. And we've worked together ever since on all of our projects. And I trust him kind of implicitly to make sure that I never have any concern that stuff's not happening on site. And we work, hand in hand to try to get the best pricing available. And we have a little bit of a different structure, with how we do our business versus how some other people might do theirs when they work with builders, especially for fee service builders. It's a little different than if the builder is the one who's bought the lot
versus the part, where they own it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Because they have their own costs and they can make a little bit more in their margins and so on. But if you were to just go out and have random schmo builder, remodel your house or build a house for you, a lot of times they'll just say, this is the price, and then that's it. And you don't see how much the windows cost, and you don't see any of these other things. And then they do like a markup on materials and so on. Well, the way we have it set up is I pay him a flat fee for the build, and then I deal with all of the costs.
And you pay for the materials.
Right. And so I just see everything, right? So he just gives me the bills. So it's nice for him because he doesn't have to deal with like me going, no way, that's way too much and that's ridiculous. Why are you charging me this? Why are you charging me that? Or any change orders. There's no change orders because he's just giving me the bills to pay, and then if our budget was off, then I just have to deal with that with the lender.
Yeah.
So, but the exchange, is that I'm probably getting a better value because I'm just paying him a flat fee. And then if ultimately I want to shop around materials and stuff to, or a different vendor, I can in theory do that to try to get a better price. But usually it's hard for me to find a better price because he has a pretty good set of people that he works with. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that's how I did it when I built my fence. I just had paid him by per the hour or whatever his rate was, and then I bought all the materials.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah,
just like building a fence.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest difference. So that's how kind of initially how I got into it, and then once you've built new construction, I think there's also like a fear, where people say, oh, well, it's easy to do a flip because it's an existing house and there's no risk really, as far as like, I know what I need to do. I just need to get it to X to be able to sell it. And it's only going to take me 6 months to do this, or it's only going to take me 4 months. So there's this, lower anxiety level with like a flip. With new construction, especially in the Portland metro area, it takes you like 9 months to get your permits and then another 6 to build. So you're committing to anywhere from 12 to 18 months just for a new construction, like if you have the lot ready. And heaven forbid, if you have to do any type of like land use stuff, like you got to divide the lot or whatever, that's like a 2-year project.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's very daunting for people to want to pursue that, investors to want to go after that, because there's very short-term mindset. That's why you see builders always saying, hey, you got any build-ready lots, or you got any, like anything that's permit ready? Like I'd buy it from you for a premium right now, because for them, it turns that into almost like a flip for them, because they're at the 6-month mark to build.
They're just going to come in and just drop everything there and just get it going.
Go, right? Yeah. And so there's no run-up time or whatever. So I think that's probably one of the pieces that steers people away from it. And one of the ways that I kind of turned that on its head was I said, well, what if I started buying rental properties where there's an extra lot, and so there's no risk, right? Like if I can get an extra lot off of a rental property that's already cash flowing, then I take the time issue out of it. There's no, and then I can just sit on that indefinitely. And if
no holding costs,
the market's bad, then I just don't build on it. If the market's great, then we build on it. And I can, once you get your permits, you're good for like a year, with the cities. So, so that was one of the ways where I started to kind of build.
And worst case scenario, you could just sell off the permitted lot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
and there's a lot more off ramps, right? So once you divided the lot, or you've done your property line adjustment, you can sell that lot to somebody, or you can go through and get the permits for the lot, right? So you design a house or whatever, or you take like a stock house from one of these different companies that like will design something like Mascord or whatever, and you just sit it down on the lot, and then once you get your permit at the city, then you could go to a builder and sell it for more to them for XYZ more, and maybe make a little bit more. Or at that point you say, well, maybe I'll build it now, and then I'll sell it, for whatever it's worth at the end and make extra. So there's a bunch of different ways to, kind of skin the cat, so to speak, when it comes to building.
Can you tell us about the financing that comes with new construction, how that looks like? Because I've never really touched a new construction loan.
Sure. Well, it's not really that much different than doing a flip. The nice thing is that typically if you have your plans, you can send them out, you get a bid set. So you can actually get actual bids for almost everything for new construction, versus if you've done a flip, it's like a lot harder to, your contractor's like, I don't really know exactly. We're just going to estimate and put some different, line items in there. And when you go to do your financing, typically with new construction, they'll want 50% down for the lot.
Okay.
Right. So it's like more for the lot because there's more risk for them. They look at it and they say, well, there's nothing actually here. It's just dirt. So we want to lower our exposure. So we're going to ask you for more money on the lot piece. And then they just, same thing as like any type of other loan. They just look at the ARV, or what the value of whatever you're going to build on the back end. And then they have their standard loan to value, caps. And as long as your budget fits within that, then off and away you go.
And these investors are looking at it like you're going to sell, not that you're going to keep it and hold it as a flip. So it's like spec construction.
Well, and the nice thing is with if you're complying with those ratios, or if you have a really good ratio with your property, and in their eyes, and it should be in your eyes to an extent, as long as you're able to like qualify for a refi, there's a backup plan there. Right. So you could basically say, I'm going to build it, and then, oh, well, I can't sell it. Now I'm just going to put a renter in it and refinance it. Versus sometimes when you're doing like a flip, that margin's not there, right? Or it's not going to cash flow because you're only going to make like 50 grand, and that's just not enough to to get that refi pushed through. Potentially, it's not worthwhile to do that. So there's benefits there. But not every lender will do new construction, so you just got to kind of shop that around. But the points are generally the same, like right now, I think last year I was paying 10% interest and, 1.5.
Yeah.
And now it's changed. Like almost everybody seems to be right in that 12 and 2 to 3. I want to say 12 and 1 and
sounded like hard money rates, basically.
Yeah. Well, and if you do I looked into conventional financing with a couple different banks in town, and I could have gotten qualified, but one of the things that they had told me was, well, we only want you doing like one project. And I was like, okay, well, that's not going to work. I don't want to just have one house going per year and that's it.
Right. And usually conventional, they like to do it more for something that you're going to hold and refinance and rent out, right? Or a second home or.
They don't. A lot of them don't want to do spec.
Yeah,
they don't want to do spec. They'd rather just do your second home or whatever.
Right.
And you could tell them it's your second home, but then that's it's a good way to get your loan called on you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the general terms. But the other thing that I like is as long as we're going along the kind of the private financing side of things, if you buy a lot free and clear, and I've done this a couple times now, like let's just say you find a lot that's 250 grand or 150, and you have either it's you or you and an equity partner or whatever. If you buy the lot free and clear, you can sometimes build in an interest reserve. So your only cost is that upfront acquisition of the lot. And then, you'll have some soft costs in your design phase, right? Like you're going to have to pay a surveyor and then, you get your plans and so on. But you bake that all into the loan and you get all that money back. So you can basically bake in your interest reserve using the equity in the lot.
Right.
And so I like doing that because then if you can get an equity partner to jump in and say, okay, I'll buy the lot, they feel good because they're like, hey, I own all the dirt. There's no way it's not no way, but there's very low risk of me not getting my money back. And then you as an investor, you don't really have to bring in any capital for the most part to do the project. Like if you're kind of managing it. And that's kind of that's where I sit in most of these projects where I have equity partners. I have, deals that I just do myself, where I have cash into them or it's just me or whatever. But a lot of times I will manage the entire deal and work with the equity partners to hey, bring in this much. Here's what we're going to forecast for how much cash we're going to need. Here's what, our estimated expenses are going to be. And, I have to put together a pro forma for each of the projects. And then I also manage the general contractor. So kind of like, the puppeteer of the project, so to speak. And it allows you to kind of move everything around and figure out the most advantageous way to structure a deal to not only protect your out-of-pocket expense, but also, probably provide the most profit for you. It's kind of like, always use other people's money.
Oh, yeah. OPM, yeah.
So that's kind of the way that I've worked with the new construction financing. Once you get past, we talked a little bit about multifamily, and I haven't really talked about that at all so far. But I did a bunch of new construction, single family, and then I did a major remodel in Albina where we built an ADU on the back as well, like a separate detached ADU. And I believe the city of Portland said I was the first person, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the first person to to condotize an ADU in a house because they're like different sizes. And so, but they both had an equal vote in the HOA, even though like the house was like way bigger.
Oh, so you made the ADU an actual condo.
Yeah. And then sold it off and sold them as two separate. Right?
Yeah.
But they're still on the same lot?
Yeah.
Because this is a newer code, right?
Yeah.
That allows you to what is the phrase, condoize an ADU?
Oh, all we did was a shoebox condominium. And so basically we had a house that sits in the front, and then we had a detached ADU that sat in the back. And the market was starting to slow at that point, and we couldn't sell them together. Like we weren't getting any traction selling them together.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a funny story, actually. So we ended up saying, well, I've sold condos in the past. We know people who've done condos. Let's just make it a condo. And so it took a while for our
How many square feet was it about?
the ADU was like 350
Oh,
square feet.
wow. So it's like not a full, big ADU.
No, and the house was 2,200 square feet.
Okay,
So
interesting.
yeah, but
Big condo.
right.
I mean, that's honestly, we need more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of space for that in Portland. Like it's a reason why they made that code.
Right. And there's a bunch of different, styles of condominiums, but the shoebox condominium basically says anything inside this box is your responsibility, which makes it a little easier to do on a scenario like that. If they were like attached, then it would have probably been a big pain in the rear because then you're sharing the sewer and sharing the electrical and all this other stuff. But this it was its own little, controlled entity, right? So we ended up selling the front and then we sold the back, we sold the ADU, we sold both houses, and that got all finished up. We, paid everybody out, and then the project was done. So I had this okay, I've done a condo, right?
Nice.
Like I know how to do the process.
So wait, was the buyer for that? Did they just pay cash, or were they able to finance the condo?
Financing on the front and cash on the back.
Yeah, I was gonna say might be kind of tricky to finance that small condo.
And then I just found out, like a couple years later, the guy who paid all cash for the ADU bought the unit from the front and then dissolved the condo. So
interesting.
Why didn't you just buy it from me in the first place? So I didn't have to do the condo.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of paperwork for that?
The condo process? Not a ton of paperwork. It's just a little time consuming. It takes a lot longer than you think. It takes like about 3 months.
Okay.
But you need to do it at a certain point during the construction, or else it becomes just kind of a cluster. So you gotta, and there's just a lot of process.
So you were trying to sell it off together while you're in the building process.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you realized that you wasn't going to work that way, so that you went for the new option.
Yeah.
How much did you sell that condo for?
I think that condo sold for $375,000
For 300 something square feet.
Yeah, it was I think it was almost $1,000 a square foot or something like that.
Wow.
It's
So,
crazy.
Well, how did you get it to work out? Because you said there was an HOA, so they would go into the backyard and kind of basically manage and clean up everything outside. Because you said
No, it's a self-managed HOA.
self-managed.
So just only the 2 units.
Right.
So what happens is so that the way the condo process works, there's a lot of misconceptions about it out there. So in the eyes of the city, all you're building is like a multifamily or a duplex or a house with an ADU, right? The city of Portland or whatever municipality, you're just building a multifamily, okay? The condo process, totally separate, and it's a state thing, right? So what happens is you get a lawyer to draft all your condominium documents, and they submit that to the OREA, okay? The Oregon Real Estate Agency, for those of you who don't know the acronym. And they review those documents to approve them, right? And then there's some back and forth, and you have to you basically have to pick an LLC name, a name for your HOA.
Yep.
So I'm very unoriginal, and I tend to choose the cross streets.
Right.
So I'll be like, this is the 52nd and Boise condo, Right? But sometimes people name them after their kids or whatever. You pick whatever you want, as long as it's not taken on the LLC registry for the state. Okay, and then they might require some changes from the lawyer and so on and so forth. But once those docs are approved, then you can get your sales documents, which replace all the OREF, all of our traditional real estate sales documents. Okay, so totally separate process. Now, the easiest way to think of it is that you're effectively creating an LLC for the structure, and then you're selling a percentage of that LLC to each person, and so if it's 5 units, you're selling 20%.
Yep.
And that percentage is for the exclusive right to use whatever unit you've sold to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each condo doc set is separate for each unit. And then, at the end, once you've sold everything off, then you have a turnover meeting where you go, okay, we're not the owners anymore. Now you're the owners. And then you say, who wants to be the treasurer? Who wants to be the president?
2 people.
Yeah, and there's only 2 of them.
Right.
It's well, somebody's got to pick one.
How do you do the division when one is 300 something square feet and the other one's 2,200? Do you do it by square footage or?
No, what we did was, so what you do is you have 2 equal voting, so each person gets an equal vote in the HOA.
Yeah.
And I think they did it so that there was 2 votes per unit, right? Because there's 2 people who were on title on each one or whatever. Not that really matters that much, but that it would allow for you'd have 3 versus 1 or, whatever. So a little more maneuverability. But I think what you're probably really asking is how does that HOA fee, get structured to an extent?
And taxes and
Yeah.
everything.
Wait, aren't they paying themselves instead of the?
Yeah, so what happens is an HOA fee is structured basically like there's future maintenance, there's monthly expenses, and then there's management, right? So, and then the monthly expenses would also include like your, so that's like your sewer and your water or whatever your shared utilities are. With the one I did, it was just sewer and water. Those are the only 2 things that were shared, right? Because those are we only had one water meter and then one sewer, but they had their own electrical and their own gas, so that was totally separate. Okay, and then there's and then on the management side, there's like an insurance and then annual filing fees.
Right.
So, so they put together like an analysis for what the future expenses are going to be.
Right.
And then they kind of break that down by the year. And with the reason you tend to see like older condominiums have higher HOA fees is because there's more anticipated like repairs and upkeep, right? So that piece is higher. As compared to like new construction, you're not foreseeing like you're not going to have to replace the roof anytime soon.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they just calculate all that out and they go, okay, here's what the total fees are going to be. And then they do a pro rata square footage. They do like a percentage. They say, okay, little teeny condo, you're 25%, and then big condo, you're 75%. Versus if they were the same size, like I just did one where it was a duplex where they're both exactly the same. And we sold that at the beginning of this year. We sold both sides. And the HOA fees are exactly the same. Again, shoebox condominium, we just split it right down the middle. And then we sold each side for it was like $625 a piece or something, so over in Southwest. So that's kind of how that process works. And it's not super complicated. You just need to start it pretty early. Like you have to do a survey for the condo and people forget about that. And the survey needs to happen like once you've like framed it in and everything. So once you've framed it in, before you put drywall and you start going down the road, you're supposed to get your survey done. And then you can do like non-binding reservation agreements. So if people want to like take a reservation, then title can take money, but those people could bail at any time. So the sooner you start that doc process, the sooner you can get your binding, like where you can take earnest money that's like non-refundable and stuff. So you get that, and then when the REA signs off and says, okay, high five, you're a condo, then you can like actually close. So a lot of people run into where they start the condo process really late in the project, and then they're sitting around with like 5 people want to buy their units, and they, if you've ever seen those ones that are like condos are just like pending like for a really long time.
Oh yeah.
That's because they're waiting for their condo docs because they waited too long to like get all that stuff done. So like they did, and even with the one beginning this year, I started relatively early, and I still had to wait 30 days to close before my condo docs got finalized and filed and, official, so to speak.
No, I love that. I mean, it's basically like a new way of building affordable housing. I mean, instead of just trying to find duplex buyers or quadplex buyers.
Well, you almost have no choice anymore with, I don't know how people are building single family in the Portland metro area anymore, with the cost of lots, like with the changes to the code, like with the RIP and everything, a lot of builders have said, well, screw this, I'm going to get out of here. Like the city of Portland takes forever. Now they've changed the floor area ratio, the FAR, for these lots. So like I had a 5,000 square foot lot. You used to be able to basically build whatever you wanted on a 5,000 square foot lot as long as you met the setback requirements, right? And then they had like a max of whatever the square footage was, but it was pretty high. And so whatever you could fit within like the height restriction and the setbacks, that's what you could build. And now they're like, oh no, the FAR is like 50%, so you can only build a 2,500 square foot house, in theory. And I think they just updated it, so it's a little bit more now. But they're like, well, you can only build 2,500 square feet. But if you add an ADU, now you can build 3,200 square feet.
Yeah, because they're encouraging more multiple.
And if you build 2 ADUs, now you can build 4,000. And so they're kind of forcing your hand, because that lot, if you figure that you're buying dirt as an investor or a builder at like, let's just call it 20-25% right now of your max sale value, if that 500,000 square foot lot or 5,000 square foot lot was 250 grand, Are you going to be building a $1.3 million, 2,500 square foot house? Probably not. I mean, who knows anymore at this point with the way the prices are, but so it makes it really tough, where the only way to really make money is to put more units in.
Yeah.
And so in the eyes of the city, when they say we want more affordable housing, what they really mean is we want smaller housing, right? Because a 2x4 costs what a 2x4 costs, whether it's in Lake Oswego or it's, you know, in North Portland or wherever. It doesn't matter. It costs the same to build. Drywall costs the same regardless of where it goes. So, so there's no additional magical ways to like just cut costs from your projects unless you're getting like affordability grants or something like that. Or something we've been doing on our new multifamily projects is that we've been applying for SDC affordability credits, where they really reduce our SDC fees. So it's saving us, you know, it's $100,000 per project, you know, to 120.
And that you have to keep your price at
like
certain.
Yeah, it's 430.
Okay.
Like well, they have different ones, right?
Yeah.
So there's one. The one that we're doing is $430K and under, and then you need to sell it to an owner-occupied individual, and the maximum family, I think like household income is like 90,000. I'm going to say right now, and that adjusts each year, right?
Right.
Based off of, you know, whatever their metrics are. But then there's other ones where you can get a like a tax reduction. So if that owner-occupied person is lives there for, you know, it's like 10-year tax moratorium or whatever, so you can apply for those. But we found that some of those restrictions for not only the unit size and the price, that reduced our price so much, we were like, it's not worth it to do that one.
So, but does that allow you, and that allows you to structure them as condos?
Yeah, well, totally separate process. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. They don't care as long as it's.
Yeah, I mean, they know you're going to sell them as like at 425. So
I know you have a minute left, so I don't want to push on too much further, but just a quick question about, and sorry to interrupt that, but if someone was to get started in real estate, what kind of advice would you give them?
To get started in real estate?
Somebody started in real estate
investing or even building.
I would say, you know, don't be afraid to reach out and tell people you don't know or you want to learn, right? I think a lot of people think that they should know everything in the beginning, and it's going to be a learning process. And just understand that you're going to make some money here and you're going to probably lose some money there, like along the way. But I wouldn't be afraid to try to partner as a junior person in a project, to bring capital. It's okay to be the capital person if they have money, you know, to learn the ropes. But beyond that, you know, trying to just shadow somebody who's done it in the past, you know, and just soak up as much information as you can, right? Like whether it's going to these classes or, you know, listening to podcasts or whatever else. But the biggest thing is you just got to do it at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, you know, I don't know how many people like, oh, I've been thinking about doing XYZ deal. And then they just don't, you know, they're just analysis to paralysis. You're so worried about making money that you never jump on any deal that's good.
And you don't learn.
Right. And if you're really, really new, especially young people, I tell them, go buy a house if you don't own a house. Like, first of all, you know, and secondly, you should try to buy like a multifamily if you can. Go buy a fourplex, get an FHA loan, and then fix up a unit. So re-rent it out, move to the next unit, fix it up, and you just do that over and over again. You refi that fourplex, then you go get another FHA until your partner says, I'm going to break up with you if we don't go get a normal house. And then you go get a normal house. So.
Okay, great. And if people are looking to find you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is lucihomes.com, LUCIHOMES.com, or you can email me at reed@lucihomes.com as well.
Great.
So.
Perfect.
Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Reed.
Thanks so
Really
much.
Appreciate it.
It was a good time.